All right, now we're live. We're finally live. All right.
So we were just talking about how Bay had interviewed the Appice brothers, Carmine and Vinny Appice, a couple times, more than once. And it's
Yes.
important to have a unique name uh, as a salesperson, a business entrepreneur. A unique name is really, really hugely important. Okay, and so uh, Carmine Appice, his father called himself Appice, but Vinny calls himself Appice. No, Appice. His dad said Appice, and Carmine says Appice, only because it was the 70s and they wanted to promote him as a drum instructor too, and a musician, and they used the tagline, "Get a piece of a piece."
There we go. That's how
That's
we
all.
entered the program tonight.
That's kind of X-rated, but I mean that's how they said it back then. Get a piece of a piece, and he had like the number one drum selling book in history. He played with Ozzy, and Sharon Osbourne fired him because he was too famous on his own.
Look at
Okay,
that. You
he
only
was.
get this kind of stuff sometime live, sometime behind the scenes as we're talking before we come on the program.
Yeah, but I think this delivery was actually a little bit better. I Dream of Jeannie was a bigger hit in reruns than it was at the beginning. So the delivery was actually better,
It's a
maybe.
great point. That's why we bring him on every single month. He's the
I'm
special
trying.
guest. He's the special guest this month again because our musical guest, Jerm Realadel, is sick. Couldn't come on last minute. A lot of people sick. My wife's sick. A lot of people sick. So Jerm couldn't come on the program. We're going to let Bay do an introduction. We're going to get right into it with Hub. What's going on in real estate? Everything that's happening this month. Social media, the works. Bay's our host here. Take it away, Bay.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the 15th episode of the Closing Table. We are the day after Valentine's Day, a couple days out from a huge, depressing Super Bowl loss. But these three smiling faces are going to put a smile on your face and broaden your horizons and open your mind as we talk to you and tell you about the hot topics and informative topics in the world of real estate and beyond.
And we're going to get off topic too sometime.
And we're going to definitely get off topic. But the man, the myth, the legend, and the person who should be doing all of your real estate business in the Philadelphia area, and he'll go as far as Lancaster or even farther if he has to, because he cares about humans over houses. Dan Pizzi of NextHome Brandywine. And of course, we met on the end there, or this way, at the end of the row, our new and third co-host to the show, third co-host. The informative and always remembering Mr. Hub Ridgell.
I love him. Hub, how
Thank
you
you very
doing?
much.
What do we got, Hub?
A mason jar. There's nothing in it. I've got my particular. It's one of these collectible mason jars from back in the day.
My grandfather used to put coins in them.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of a variety of these. My wife likes to collect all different kinds of things.
How about
She's
different
even
types
got
of
'em-
glass? What type of
these-
glass is it? Is it green glass?
I honestly, this one's green. Yeah, this one's green.
Yeah, that's what it
This
looks
one,
like.
this arts and crafts guy made lids for it.
That's pretty
So-
cool, isn't it, Bay?
Yeah. That looks like
Yeah,
like
it is
a
because
special
he took the
perfume
wood
bottle.
and then he stained the pieces and glued the two pieces together and made the knob and put that on. So this is actually two pieces glued together with a skinny piece in the middle that's been stained brown. I'll put this
Look
in.
at that.
It's pretty cool, and it'll fit any of the jars.
The best. So it's one size on that.
Yeah, see, so you got a variety like this, anywhere from this to this, and bigger and smaller.
Look at that.
Yeah, and they're collectible. I mean, they made millions of them, so I don't know, but people love to have them, not just for the resale value, because they like to enjoy having the artistic value, etc.
I love this program since he joined. It's so much better. So much more information we're putting up there. Let's get in. We're going to get back to some of that. Let's get into some brief real estate here, and we'll kind of mix it up tonight. It's fun. Make it informative for everybody. Go ahead, Hub.
Can I finish up with that thought, though? Because I didn't tie into the fact that you can, regardless of how your family pronounced the name Pizzi, because that was cut off on the beginning, regardless of how whoever pronounces it, you can pronounce it Pizzi, because I know that's the original pronunciation.
Correct.
So it'd be real easy to have that tagline, that it's like pizza with an E on the end.
We do say that with an I on the end, and well, in the Pizzi pronunciation, we say take off the A and add the I. I say to people because sometime when I go somewhere, it says pizza. They'll have it on the pizza.
Yeah, but you can go to different states and they have pronunciations of Italian names which are really very far from what they really are intended to be. Like for instance, there was a guy that when I was a kid here in Texas, they called him Mr. Tickle Eye, and his real name was Mr. Tishelli.
Wow, that's
Quite a stretch, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he didn't correct him either. He wasn't a teacher. He was just a guy in a youth group, but an older guy in a youth group. So
This is
it
great.
became from Ticelli, it turned into Mr. Tickle Eye.
It's funny how people do switch. I have a buddy that changed his whole name. He went to school with us. He changed his whole name. He was I forget what he was. He switched it to Graziano, which was the family name back in Italy. He switched the whole last name around. He was Roush.
He was what?
He was Roush, and I think the mother or the father's maiden name original back in Italy was Graziano, and he switched the whole last name.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people do that. They take another name from like their mother's name way back in the day, etc. And
You never know what you're going to get here. It's always great on the closing table. All kinds of unique information. That's why Hub's here every single month. Don't miss an episode.
Yeah, well, what is in a name? That would be the same. What's in a name? You know, as Shakespeare said. It's a big deal, and I'm telling you, if you own the name of the band, as Bay knows, that you're going to get the bank, whether you got any original members or not.
Right.
And if it has a ring to it, it makes it more memorable. It makes it more sellable.
I still wanted Jerm to join this month because you two are music guys. We're going to get him on definitely. He's got all new music out. Hub, did you get a chance to look at some of his stuff?
Yeah, and I actually researched some of his history.
He's getting there. He's doing some good stuff. He's getting there. He's really putting out. He got music. Bay loves his music videos. Bay thinks he's doing a good job with his editing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
with music videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good kid. A lot of talent, and
he's got new. He's got new merch out. I'm going to send us all one. We're going to wear it on the air. He's got new merch out. So he's got his own press. So I'm going to get the sizes from you guys. We'll order some sweatshirts and we'll rep him on the program. Jerm Realadel, check him out on Facebook, YouTube. He's sick tonight. He always does us a solid and joins the program, but we'll get him on another month. A lot of people sick right now. A lot going around, especially around our area. How about down there in Texas? A lot of people sick down there, Hub?
No. We've had really nice weather except for that 4 days of ice freeze.
Ice. How was the ice freeze?
I'm telling you, it's hibernation city for 4 days because you can't go anywhere because it's a solid sheet of ice that's frozen.
You know what it was up here today, Hub? 64 degrees up here in Philadelphia today.
Yeah, it's thereabouts here too, and probably in Nashville.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I was out today with a sleeveless T-shirt and shorts walking around.
Yeah, it's let me dovetail in because the weather's been good. Our real estate activity has been through the roof. We usually in the winter here, when it gets too cold and we start having ice and snow and weather conditions, we don't usually, like Hub made a point that they hibernate, and that's what generally happens here. But the weather's been so good, the activity's been off the hook up here. I mean, literally, the supply and demand. The demand is so heavy in February. In my 17 years, I've never seen the demand that heavy. And in general, in February, there's not a lot of inventory. People don't move in February unless they have to, you know.
Can I ask you a real estate question?
Go ahead. That's why we're here, right?
It was like, and I sent you a lot of videos that I think are.
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that tonight.
And I don't know. We don't talk that much, so I don't know exactly if you watch them all or if you have time or any of that stuff. But this guy Chris Igo, I think. Chris Igo, speaking of names, but names are important. And they're not only important, and I don't mean to get philosophical, but they're not only important for just your name, but they're also important in labeling concepts that you want to convey to people when you're a salesperson. That is a truth. Okay. So, but the question I have is this guy, he is entertaining because he's one of those guys that can just sit on there and just start talking. Okay. And these guys do these videos and they get a lot of views, just like stream of consciousness, just sitting down and talking. And he does it in his car most of the time. And he is angry in this video where he and I don't know how this works, and you can explain to me. The person who lists the home, other people can actually sell that home, even though, and the person who sells it's going to get a little bit of the cut, and the guy who listed it's going to get some of the cut. Okay, but the problem is he contacts the guy after it goes off on alpha listing and tries to sell it to a customer who had fallen in love with that home, and the guy did not want to talk to him on the phone. He only wanted to text with him, and Igo was really, really mad because he didn't want to be misinterpreted with what he was saying. He wanted to get a person on the other line rather than just texting another real estate agent. And the real estate agent did not want to talk person to person on the phone. He just wanted to text. And communication gets misconstrued between two real estate agents when that happens.
This guy's the best. It's exactly what's going across. I swear, he hits it nail on the head. It's what's going on across the board. I said about 50 times this week, clear and concise communication. When you're not clear, or you don't, because when you text, we just touched on this in several different ways. When you text, you could take it a different way. The connotation, like when I read a text, you could take it. Sometimes, isn't it better to pick up the phone and have that discussion?
Yeah, we're not, in this case, we're not talking about with customers, because we know you do that, Dan. We know you take
No, I'm talking realtor to realtor.
Yeah, we're talking about realtor, because there's competition going on there, and there's comparison and judgmentalness that's going on between the two of you. And so you want to make sure that you guys reach out olive branches to each other. And if you're only texting to each other, that I can see why the guy's mad, and the whole freaking video is mad. He's got an edge on him. And for him, it works. His edge works because he's always a fair dude. He was definitely not going to cut this guy out of his royalty, but he wanted to have some good, and the other guy just wouldn't even basically give him the time of day.
So let's talk a little bit more, and maybe I'm missing a piece of that. But so when you have a listing agreement, you're locked in with the client for X amount of time. When that listing agreement ends, in our area, there's a clause in the contract that you can put in there. If somebody showed it while I listed it, or I procured somebody that looked at the house, if one of these people that are on my list buys the house after I'm not your listing agent, you're not contracted with me, you still owe me my commission. And generally people put it on for 30, 60 days. I had one that they waited for we were just talking about it, me and my wife. They waited for my listing to expire. And then the guy went and sold it to two teachers who I had procured as clients and took them through to see the house. Now, technically, I didn't fill out that line because I was a rookie agent and my broker didn't want to sue, but that's called procuring cause. And if you have clear, concise communication between the agents, you can head that off. I've had some really good agents lately, really good, a lot of all ladies, excellent. And we had that talk about us working together. What happens is we're the liaison. Say Bay's the buyer, you're the seller. I might be representing both of you. I might be representing one of you. I have to have clear and concise communication because it's your decision, it's your transaction, and I am conveying that information that you would want me to convey in the way you want it conveyed to the other party. And a lot of times the agents get in the middle and interject with stuff that doesn't represent the thought process and the wants of their particular client, and we run into a lot of trouble there. Again, I say it every time. My wife gets mad too. Like, I trained under Dave Stinson. The guy's 63 years in the business. I trained under a lot of old timers that taught us the meaning of the words and how to do things the right way to make sure that we're communicating. And in the end, it's a business for us and we want to get paid. So the better we are at communicating and articulating our clients' needs. I say this to every client. It's your transaction. I'm here to guide you through it. If I think you're making a decision that isn't in the best interest of your transaction, I will tell you why and give you my opinion. Now, if you still don't want to go with my opinion, it's your transaction, and I'll articulate that to the other side and say, look, my client's thought is X, and this is their viewpoint on that. But it's that's why we bring, the guy's a genius. That's why we bring him on. It's exactly what's going on. It's getting worse. And I think the reason it's getting worse, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, the lack of training and the lack of retention in every transaction, because it's building blocks. It's like you're building a house. If you don't have a good foundation, somebody can knock it down easily. You have to learn and take notes. And Dave Stinson told us stories. I used to call them Dave's parables. And we would go to trainings and he would help us understand stuff through giving us a real life example of something that happened in a transaction. And he would say, he used to call me Big Boy, back in 1984, Mary Simmons sold this house, and we would walk through it and it helped us retain it. And today, when these agents are done, again, not trying to disparage, and they get their check, everything goes out of the head, almost like you're in school. You take the test and then you forget everything.
Yeah, but I think, like, for instance, the other agents got the sale and you didn't want to sell because you didn't want to sue.
We don't want to split your commission. Right.
No, nobody wants to sue anybody. Nobody wants to burn any bridges. But these guys are being inconsiderate because they need to come to you and tell you, hey, is this okay? Even if they don't have to ask you, and even if you know they're going to take it, they need the courtesy. This is all just common courtesy, you see?
I agree. And I'll tell you what's going on right now. There's a lawsuit out there where they're trying to change the way we do business. So inherently in the business, the seller side paid the commissions, all the commissions. So whether it was 5%, 6%, and then you decided what the co-op was with the other side. So years ago, we always split it. If it was a 6% commission and I had the seller and Hub, you were another agent and you brought me a buyer, we split those commissions 3%. Now what they're doing is, if I take Bay's got the listing, I'm Bay's agent, you're the other agent representing the client on the buyer side, I get a 6% listing, I'm taking 3.5% and I'm giving the other side 2.5%. Right? So they're not even doing, you're allowed to do that by law, but like you said, is that really fair on the listing side that you're only giving out 2.5% to someone who's bringing you a co-op?
Right.
Okay.
And there's more to it than that too. Go ahead, Hub.
And you talked about your family being entrepreneurs, and one of the biggest key to being a successful entrepreneur is to not burn bridges anywhere. You want to connect with people, and you want to have people that you can help and that they're going to help you when you need them. And it's all about being considerate. Bay has done a lot of conventions and wrestling events and music events, music promotion, and I've done that kind of stuff too. And I guarantee you, Bay can tell stories like this, even though we've never talked about it. That anytime you ever do something, there's somebody who's always trying to get in on your gig.
They do.
And they don't do it. They also don't do it. If they would just say, hey, is that okay? I'd say, even if I didn't like it, I'd still say that's okay. But if they just do it and just don't even tell you, then you're like, well, why didn't you just come tell me? You know, it's all about open communication, like we were talking about. And this is just like kindergarten stuff that people should have learned.
No, 100%. I'll give you this story. This leads us in, Bay, real quick. And me and Bay were talking about briefly before we came on the air. So I had a seller in the city, had his house under contract. We had to find a house for him. We found the house for him. We put in the offer. It was accepted contingent on the sale of his home. Now, I had already had his house under contract for a good 6 weeks, and the agent was waiting for me to find him a suitable housing on the buy side. So they already had the mortgage started, everything for a good 5-6 weeks before we were able to ink a deal for him to buy. So we had to sell, and I found him a house to buy. On his sell side, we had horrific experience with a mortgage company, but we'll get into that later. This is doving off of what Hub said. The settlement ended up getting delayed. On the house that my seller was buying, Everett Street in Philly, it was a contentious situation with the sellers, and one of the sellers was still in the house, sleeping on the floor because we didn't settle on time. And it was over a week extension because the mortgage wasn't ready for the house that my seller was selling on the front end of the deal, and he needed money out of that deal to buy his new house. You know what I did? And this is being humans over houses. I just thought this was the right thing to do. I literally paid for the guy to sleep in a hotel for a week to get him off the floor. I sent him money directly out of my own account, not even the work account, and said, listen, here's money. Let's see if we can get this done. The mortgage company's still working on it. Here's money. Get yourself a hotel room so you can at least sleep in a bed for a week until we get this thing done. This is about caring about everybody in the transaction. The other agent said to me, I never seen anybody in my life do that. She said, he is so grateful that you went out on a leap of faith, gave the guy money, set it up for him, organized it, put him in a hotel for a week so the guy could have a bed because he was sleeping on a wood floor on a crappy air mattress for a week because we were late on settlement. This is what we do. I mean, it's not ideal. It's not something you want to do all the time. But out of respect and courtesy for everybody involved, because they worked with us to allow us to pull this off, unfortunately, we weren't able to pull it off, and we'll get into that. But Hub, the kind of just going off of what you were saying. What do you got, Bay?
No,
your wheels are spinning. I could see your wheels spinning up there.
I had like multiple questions, and now I'm brain farting. But one of the things was you were talking about.
My mom's going to tell me to sit in the middle of the screen, so let me move over.
The one question I was thinking is, have you run into a lot of times where you're working with clients and you're trying, I mean, basically you're like the head coach for these people, and you're trying to coach them through this process, and you want to put them down the right path, but there's just some people that are just hard-headed or as Hub would say, they're a number one like me, and they don't want to, they'll listen, but they won't do what you're telling them is the right thing to do for them, and they'll go off onto their own tangent, and it ends up being wrong and blows.
This is what I do, Becky. This is what I do, Becky. This is what I try to do, only because I learn better by visual. My son was, he learns a little differently, and he says like, I'm no good because of that. I said, no, everybody learns differently. Everybody has a unique way that they learn, and as you get older, you figure that out. What I tell them is, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Right. So I'm not doing that. I said, okay, let's go over the scenario together, whatever that scenario may be. Like tonight, we had one, we just booked the deal. The buyer wanted the washer, dryer, refrigerator. Okay. So if you don't want to leave it, you should just put it in exclusions, but we didn't do that. So the buyer wanted to get the washer, dryer, refrigerator. They had a very good offer. The seller, I always put an initial line there so that they are forced to read it, because with DocuSign, if you don't walk people through and explain stuff, it could be misconstrued. So I put it on. It was in the agreement. They said they wanted the washer, dryer, refrigerator part of the deal. So I made her initial it. So she had signed it, and then she called me back an hour later, and she was a little bit huffed and said, I don't want to take it. I want to take it. So I thought, well, it would have been better if we told me before. Right. But things like that, what I did was I just went back to the buyer's agent. I said, listen, my seller had second thoughts. She wants to take a washer, dryer, refrigerator with her. Is it a deal breaker? She said, I don't think so. I'll go back to my clients. I haven't heard from her yet. She goes, it shouldn't be a big deal. And I just did a change in terms. But there's some stuff that gets really hairy. And I think sometimes people, for the wrong reason, get indignant with the other side. Right now, it's entitlement. There's no higher price. The prices are going up and up and up and up. You're getting such top dollar right now, it's ludicrous. And as soon as you book a deal, they think they should get more. I'll give you an example. One of my agents, it's crazy. You mentioned about kindergarten. They act like kindergartners sometimes. They don't have a open-minded thought in as far as maybe that's probably not the right thing to do. We had one, I'll tell you this real quick. We had one in the city, and the house should have been worth about $430. The gentleman's settlement was related to my agent, and he wanted to put it up for $509. I'm thinking, the comps. I look at the comps. You don't just pick a number. You got to see what the market's bearing and all. That's not the price, right? So long story short, they get a good offer, real solid offer. Let's say $470, and they have a verbal with the agent. They put in a verbal. They take the verbal, and then an hour later, the client calls back and says, I'm not taking that. So you say to the client, listen, here's the comps. You're getting top end here. It's probably in your best interest to take the deal. Like, you go through these scenarios, and we'll say these are all hypothetical, but you go through these scenarios and you say, look, I'm going to lay it out for you. But sometimes, Bay, you lay it out for people and they just say no. And then I go back to people and say, look, I had a conversation with them. I laid it out. I explained it to them. And inevitably, I work for you. If it comes to the point to where I get compromised, then we can step out of the deal and say we're not going to represent you.
Right.
If it's to the point to where I think it's ethically wrong, I'm out. I'm out. Even if it comes down to, you used to stay in for the money. Now, no. You know why? Hub made this point. Reputation, right? So like I want that solid reputation as a professional, that I'm doing things the right way within the parameters. And if it's ethically not to standard, I'm out. I'm not going to do it. But yeah, we come across that a lot. What do you got, Hub? You got notes over there, Hub?
I got tons of notes.
Hub's got notes. Hub, what's on those notes?
Well, it started out with some stuff with Realadel, and then I was talking about the episode that you had with him, if I'm pronouncing his name right again.
Yes.
But you also brought out a bunch of points in there that were sort of skirted over, and I was doing that. But what I was thinking about, we were talking about, like you were talking about reputation, but I'm looking at the other side of that coin would be selecting and working and building a relationship with your workers, or
100%.
It's hard to separate a worker and a client, because you're working for your client, and then you've got people that are working for you, pouring concrete in Philly or wherever it is. And so it's all about relationships. And you called it chameleon.
Yeah, chameleon.
Your language.
Yes.
To different types of people, you see?
You do.
So, but I mean, 85% of anyone's entrepreneurial success is determined by relationships.
100%.
And see, the reason the relationships don't work is because it's easy to see things from your point of view. It's hard to see it from the other person.
And isn't it better to put them in the other person's shoes, so maybe they have a reflective mirror to take a look at it if they were in the other position?
Always going on because it's a muscle to be able to see it from the other person's point of view. You have to develop that skill. And if your parents didn't teach you that, and I feel very sorry for people whose parents spoiled them.
Do you notice? But I'll tell you what, the generation, my kids' generation, again, in my opinion, very entitled, very spoiled. Don't very me. Don't take that look and say, let's extend it. I'd rather give you example. We had the house in Fallcroft, and they didn't want to fix a couple of things. It was a couple $100 fix. You know what I did? I just paid for it myself, so it got done. You know why? It was a safety item. It kept everybody legal on both sides of the transaction. And I said, if you guys want to be that that way about it, we're just gonna, I'm just gonna pay for it and be done with it. Give me 1 second. Let me shut this off here.
Knight Rider, right?
No. That's the A team, actually.
A team, that's it.
But Dan, that's kind of my theory to making a project work. Is that you're gonna go out, you're gonna do extra things to make it work because you want it to work in the big picture, and you may have to pay for some guy to stay in a hotel for a week. You may have to pay for something extra for somebody, but you're gonna do what's called. There's a thing in order to become a stronger person, and they call it EE action. It's called efficient and effective action. And if you can have continuous, efficient, and effective action, you become a stronger person. But you're going to have to do things. You're going to have the end goal in mind, and you're going to have to do things to get to that end goal. And some of them you're not going to like, but you're going to do it because you want to get to that end goal.
It is a challenge mentally, and with art, and when I was in telecom, with what we do, there's a start and a finish. Like what my wife does with Wills and Estates, it seems like it never ends. It's monotonous, right? For us, we get the transaction, we bring it to start to finish, we get the reward of the payoff. But when you're working a certain way, and sometimes you feel the majority of people are not working the same way you are, you do get frustrated. It's just a common nature. You do get frustrated.
Well, you get frustrated when and I was telling Bay this because I've made suggestions to them about, the Cocoa Bay channel, which is actually growing in gangbusters compared to what he used to be doing with his other stuff. And some of them, they listen to what I say. Some of them, they don't, not so much. They don't like it too much. But I'm throwing out ideas. And I've always said this to Bay. I said, I come up with all kinds of crazy ideas, and some of them are great and some of them aren't. But at least
Hey, what do you think about some of that? Because I want to, we just started the channel, right? It's new. We've all, Bay, a little over a month. We just started, for our marketing, social media. And I'll get into some. But Bay, what do you think? Like, I appreciate, we were in the barbershop talking about that today. I appreciate somebody giving me ideas. And to get to pick and choose because I'm not creative. So if someone's more creative, I say, oh, I didn't think of that. Maybe we pick and choose from some.
Well, wait a second. I tried to tell you that you are creative.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. Let me tell you something.
You don't realize it, but you are.
But Bay will tell you are. Bay is actually very intuitive. He can pick out things that's about.
He looks smarter than he.
That's why you got to hang around with guys. You got to hang around with guys like us because we were really outside the box. You went to school and you studied with these mentors and you've really applied a lot of stuff that they've done. A lot of the stuff Bay and I have done is we've made up our own thing on all kinds of stuff. I'm not saying we're geniuses or anything. We just have made up all kinds of things. So this is really good for us to hang around you, and you're helping us to hang around you.
Well, let me put this out there. When you get so we just started. So our social media marketing is a work in progress, right? Coco, me, and Bay. It's going to get better, right? So anytime I tell my son this, anytime you start something, there's no way you're going to perfect it. And I'm working with this other agent that's more of a rookie, and I'm giving her she's taking notes. I'm giving her a lot of information to help her along. But I'll put it out there. My brother-in-law sometimes shakes his head, but I just tell people the way it is. I got negative feedback on the channel. And I had one person reach out and say, oh, you should blow the whole thing up and start over. Now, I also get feedback from a lot of other people. To be honest, I'm 100% honest. Even my mother's critical, but my mother's like, I like everything you guys are doing. One thing here or there, but everything's really good. And I get feedback from different perspective and different age groups and stuff. But I had a good friend of mine call me up, out of market guy, and said, your social media sucks, blow it up. And I thought, just the delivery, Hub, right? Not even constructive criticism, just the delivery. And I took it in. And I didn't lash back out at him right away, and I absorbed it. And then I had to talk with him at another time and said, listen, our target market and what we do is totally different than your market. Like he says, you should put a suit on and this and that. Listen, I can dress with the best of them, but around here, we're not dressing every day in our market. I mean, it's a different, Can I? Yeah, I can. And I will if I have to. I'll do whatever it takes. But so I didn't think the criticism was warranted what we're doing and how we're doing it. Watch us grow. That's part of the fun of it, right? Watch us grow it. Watch us get better. We take input from. That's why we bring Hub on, and we bring him on, and we keep him on here, and he helps us, and he gives us ideas. And sometimes we don't have the time to implement them right away, but they're going to be put in the coffers. And as we get time to get things going, we'll do it. But do you find there's a lot of negativity that surrounds people that are maybe having some success? Hub, you in the music business,
I mean, that's the thing is. It's everywhere, and it has nothing to do with. It's just the bubble that person lives in. They're in a different bubble than you are, and how do they know what's going to work? I guarantee you, Bay's got something really good to say about this.
I mean, honestly, I could say, well, first off, about that particular part, and then I'll go back to your buddy, but that just comes down to absolute inner jealousy of that person. Okay. And I'm guilty of it myself because especially more so in the wrestling business. When there was times in the wrestling business where I saw people getting ahead and doing things that I wanted to do and I wasn't able to do, inside it truly ate at me and it killed me. And I was jealous of that person and at times was like that and would say negative stuff or stuff like that. But as I've gotten older, and really have matured, and it's hard for me to even say that and believe that, but I have really matured, especially over the last so many years, and really look at so many things so much different. Like me and Hub were just having this conversation the other day where he said to me, I can't believe how very open you are to my suggestions and you listen to what I have to say. And normally, again, when I was younger, I would probably not have done that. I would have just yes the person and closed them off and just went about my business. But I've really learned people like Hub or you, Dan, or even somebody off the street or whoever is going to shoot me an email or leave a comment, I'm going to listen now and hear what they're saying, because 10 to 1, they're coming from a totally different perspective and outside of my box where I would be thinking. So I can probably learn something, definitely get something to be creative and spin it into my brain. And there's also times too where it's something that I just won't completely agree with. I will think about it, but if it doesn't work in my brain at all, then I'm not going to go for that. Now with your guy that was negative, as we're now at about 5-6 weeks
That's
of doing
all.
the social media for Dan, I will say this: it's not as easy as people think. It's easy to sit there and try to do social media for wrestling or for a band or for Coco Bay because you can just, we're not, the thing you got to remember is real estate and Next Home Brandywine, you have a brand. It's a
Right.
legitimate nationwide, worldwide company. It's a major franchise brand. And yeah, Dan is trying to go outside the box and be unique and different and fun, which is great and which is going to make him stand out eventually. But you also still have to maintain that professionalism. And there's a fine line. And me and Coco, as we talk about things, will, you know, try to figure out like, is this okay? Is this professional? She gets, because she does the majority of it. She gets very nervous because she doesn't want to cross
Well,
that line and upset people.
and let's talk about. I asked her just, and I was so busy the last 2 weeks because this deal in the city has gone bad, and I haven't been able to respond, but just been running with that.
Sure.
But I sent some cryptic quick shit, like real quick, excuse the language, but real quick. And I said, like, Coco, can you put something up for Black History Month? February's Black History Month. Can you put something up?
Mhm.
She went further and actually researched Black Americans that were in the real estate industry, right, in years back, and tied in the Black History Month with the real estate. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. It's creative. It ties the Black History Month to the real estate, which she did it. And who was going to know that off the top of the head? She researched it and she pulled that data in. And I thought people criticized, but that was a very good post. And we wanted to make light of Black History Month, and she tied it back to the real estate. Go ahead, Hub.
Okay, there's this self. Back in the day, they used to call them motivational speakers, and then they turned the definition of a motivational speaker into what they didn't want to be called that anymore. They wanted to be called a business philosopher, and now they've got the new term that people want to be called an influencer. Okay, but this guy Charlie Tremendous Jones, he wrote these books back in the '60s, but they're incredible stuff, and he has a concept called production to perfection. And he says that if you major in perfection when you're working on your project or whatever your company is, if you major in perfection, you're never going to get anything done. You're going to have the fanciest suit. You're going to have the most expensive guitar. Willie Nelson's got a guitar hole in his guitar, and he still sounds good. Okay, you're going to never get anything done. You're going to take 6 years to make your second album, like Boston did. They put out one of the largest selling albums. It took them 6 years to make the next album. Okay,
and it bombed.
And so if you major in perfection, you'll probably never get anything done. But he says if you major in production, you'll learn a little bit about perfection every day. So what you do is you major in being more prolific and more putting stuff out there. And each time you do it, your practice is you're gonna get better. You're gonna improve on it. You see, so what you do is you major in production, but you don't major in perfection.
Because it's a great point. And I like the way you articulate it, because I can't articulate like that. And if my son's not watching, he's going to watch the replay. What we had 38 minutes and 45 seconds or 37 minutes about when Hub started talking about that. It's a terrific point. I'll tell this real quick. So we were in MCI WorldCom. I sat next to a guy, Dave Solera. The guy was a guy that was a perfectionist. So we used to have to write the orders for the telecom stuff and send them down to the utility so they would order the service. Dave used to sit there and be a perfectionist to try to get every detail right. So the way they worked it was when we sent the orders down, when they had too much work, they were going to send it back no matter if it was perfect or no matter if it had errors, because that was a way for them to manage the workflow. So we used to get graded on it. And Dave would say, Dan, you slop things up and jam them down, and you have a better throughput than I do. And it comes back to Hub's point, because I understand how it worked. And I had to put so much, I did it a darn good job, but it wasn't every little detail because I knew they were going to push it back at some point anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we stay within the rules and get it to them in the timeline we needed to? But it was the same scenario that Hub's talking about. And I told my son's a perfectionist. If he can't do it, he'll stare at it until it's right. And I said, sometime, Danny, you just have to have the throughput because you waste all your time trying to be perfect. And then Hub's point, you get, Coco sent me a message today. You know what she said? Your tips of the day are getting better and better. Right. And what's that, Hub? I'm doing more. I'm getting more confident. I'm trying to, because sometimes I talk way too fast. I'm starting to articulate a little more, slow myself down, be more comfortable in my skin.
But you're being,
you said it. I know you said it this week.
The first few you did, me and Coco were both like, it's not Dan. It's not, it wasn't you. Like you on here is the real Dan. And you were trying to, you're now getting more used to it and more confident doing it, and you're articulating yourself like the real Dan. So the real Dan and your personality, which is huge, and I think can be a huge part of the whole process of blowing the social media up, is you and your personality. I think we can make Dan like a social media influencer star in the world of real estate,
and it takes time to real quick, Hub, and I'll bring you in here. I did this the last time. I used to do it. It was the Morning Minute. And I had a guy I went to Bonner with that criticized the hell out of me. And I stopped doing it. I got so upset that I said, I'm not doing them anymore. The hell with I'm not doing it anymore. But I was in the car one time. He said, you're going to crash and kill somebody. He was another realtor. And he was jealous of the stuff I was putting out because I give people real information outside the box that other people won't. We'll get into that a little bit too. Go ahead, Hub.
But that's the reason I was bringing up the topic, is because of the criticism of people. Of course, you're putting it out there, and it's going to continue to get better. And that's the whole point of the whole thing, is that you've got to start. Everybody starts at the beginning. Even the people who were great at stuff, they 100%. Still start at the beginning.
100%.
It's funny, don't pay attention to the criticism unless it's constructive criticism.
Well, it's the way you deliver things. My mother always says to watch the way you talk to people. So the way you deliver things, like to say that sucks, you blow it up, that's ignorant. I mean, when someone's trying very hard to do what we're trying to do, like Bay said, it's far from easy, and there's a lot of and Hub gives us a ton of information, and we're going to implement that and grow some of that. But to say it in that way to somebody, and even when we talk about transactions, the way you speak to other agents, the way you speak to clients, you have to watch, because words hurt people, and you have to watch the way you speak to people. I mean, you have to be the adult in the room and be very careful the way you word things to people.
Yeah, but that's communication and history of the world 101, is that destructive criticism is not helping, and constructive criticism helps if the person's ready for it, and you have to be able to see it from the other person's point of view so that you can give them what they're able and capable of taking.
This guy said to me, "Hey, you're never going to sell $800,000 houses." Bullshit. I have sold them. That's really, I'll be honest with the folks. I have sold them. I can sell them. I could put on my Donna Karen suit and we can go to war. We can go all day long. My market, honestly, is mid-market, working class people. I have more mid-market people. Right now, my core customers are Africans from Liberia, Nigeria, coming out of New York and coming into Delaware County. I'm doing deal after deal with them, and it's been a joy. They're mid-market. Imran Pilati was our vice president. He just left. His big thing was, you work the same with that $60,000 house as you do with that. And if you discriminate with people in between for any reason, like, you're not doing good business. We do. I just saw a quote about, when I left CTDI, I was the only one they didn't walk out the door with the security guard when we got laid off, because I talked to the janitor, to the security guards, to the CEO the same way. And when we went into big meetings, my buddy Pete used to say, Danny's not afraid to sit in front of a multi-million-dollar CEO, because I was confident in my ability and what I did. I knew my job, and I'm not afraid to sit in front of people. And I'll sit and talk to that janitor. I'll sit and talk. The security guard told the people at CTDI, I'm not walking him out of the building. And they said, no, you don't have to. He can stay as long as he wants, because they knew I had relationships with everybody in the building, from the CEO on down to the security and all. It's a different mindset for people.
And Jim Rohn talked about that too. He'd say, if you don't have much money right now, and you don't manage that little amount of money you have very well, when you get a whole bunch of money, you're not going to manage the whole bunch of money very well either. So
what do they do in
like
the NFL? They talk about that in the NFL because these guys blow the money. We're going to talk about that, Hub. Go ahead.
But you talked about that in the episode with Jerm, or the first episode with Jerm, is that's how you learn to sell $800,000 houses, is getting good at selling lower priced houses.
Yep.
And that
Ross
was one of
Abrams.
yeah. So and the other thing, there was another concept that it was about, it was talk about sincerity, and sincerity means that you treat everybody the way you'd want to be treated, whether they're a janitor, they're a parking lot attendant, whoever, and you're never going to see them again. You're still going to treat them just as if you treated everybody fairly, and you're going to treat them with sincerity. You really care about that person, because if you don't, that's going to affect your own self-esteem and the way you feel about yourself. And he says, what he says, you can't afford to lose any of sincerity, because it will make you feel unhappy as a person when you're not sincere with people.
Right. I'll tell you this, Chad Johnson played for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he was on this week, and he said, I saved 67% of what I made in the NFL. And they said, well, how did you do that? He said, I wore fake jewelry. He said, guys go out and buy big Mr. T. He literally wore gold-plated, as my grandmom would call Monet jewelry. Nobody knew the difference. And he paid $500 versus their $50,000 for a necklace. And he said he flew coach, Spirit Airlines and everything else, versus flying first class and all that. So he only spent a third of the money that he earned in the NFL. What a lot of these poor guys, as Hub said, is they don't know how to manage their money. They come out of the NFL, their bodies are beat up, they're broke down, and they're broke. They're broke down physically, and they're broke money-wise because they were under peer influence of having to show. My father was not like that at all. But he said, I wore fake jewelry and I flew coach. And I found it fascinating. He's trying to articulate that to the young guys. That's about your net worth. You only play this game for a short time. You have to save your money on the back end. So I found that really interesting this week.
It's like Mick Foley kind of did that same thing. He saw all those other guys going through their money, like Ric Flair and stuff like that, over expenses and just top dollar everything. And meanwhile, Mick Foley was the exact opposite, and sleeping in Motel 6s or his car to save money over top-notch hotels and everything else.
And those guys didn't have a contract, so only paid. And that was just listening to somebody talk about that. When you like us, the guys get $40, and not under contract. You just show up, you wrestle independent, you get whatever you get, and then you go home. A lot of back in the day, they had no contracts for those guys.
Yeah.
But as a real estate agent, I think it's your responsibility to counsel people on this money 100%. Philosophy and living within your means.
Yeah, listen,
is that right?
100%. That's why we bring you talk about stuff that I could write down, and I don't even have a list tonight. But so when I first started, I took it too far. And my wife said, listen, if they want to buy it, you give them the advice. But then if they want to go ahead and make that decision, I tell people what you're approved for with your mortgage pre-approval doesn't mean it's what you should spend, because they'll approve you for up to, say, 46 to 52% of your total income on just your mortgage. Now factor in your insurance, your food, your vacation, clothes, a car payment. And I tell people in the car business, they used to say, my dad didn't like it, but how much do you want to spend a month? Right? Yeah. Well, I could afford X. I tell people when I first meet with them, I got referred from a guy, and the son called me, and I said, let's talk about, did you talk to a mortgage professional? Did you see on paper how much you can afford? And then figure out how much that you feel comfortable spending monthly. So you might be able to afford $2,500 a month, but you might only want to have a mortgage of $1,600 or $1,700 because that's your sweet spot. Like, for example, my mortgage is very low, $1,250 a month. People now are $2,500, $2,700. The car payments are $700. And how much money can you generate? If you're a working class person, you have to be very careful. And Hub, sometime I might not even get the deal, but I want to make sure that I'm putting the people in giving them, because right, you're an advocate. They lost sight of what we do. So there is a business, but it's more than a business. It's about the people. It's about the biggest purchase of their life, and we're an advocate for them. And I make sure that I give them all the information that I can, so they feel more comfortable once they get their house, that they don't feel like they're in, oh my God, I'm house poor. I can't afford this now, and I went in over my head. Now, if they want to do that, I tell them, look, I gave you my insight, and I thought that was in your best interest. You make the final decision.
I think, real quick, Hub, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I watched in the car business many dealerships that I handled in the job I used to do, where these sales guys or managers would stuff these people in these cars, knowing damn right well they could not afford them. And they would laugh and say, I got the deal done. My job is done. If that car gets repossessed in 6 months, that's not my problem. I made my sale. And this is where Dan is saying,
total opposite.
and this is where the exact term is perfect for this, where it's humans over houses, where Dan does not want to see, God forbid, a person buy a home and they could afford, or they're approved for $2,500 a month, but they should not make that go for $2,000 and be safe. This way, God forbid, these people don't end up on the street in 6 to 8 months and they're homeless.
And asked the fabulous ones, Frank Demoli's friend, the big tall guy, not the Italian guy. What's his name? His name's out of my head right now. You know who I mean? The tag team, the fabulous ones, Frank's good friend, Greg Spitz.
Oh, so okay, yeah, the marvelous ones.
Yes, Marvel. I'm thinking WCW here. The marvelous one. So Greg Spitz comes to me and says, he's divorced, 2 boys, wants to be near the wife, limited. And Dan, I need to get to X. And I thought, this is a challenge because there's not much of X out there. And I said, Greg, listen, buddy, we're going to find it. Don't you worry. We're going to get you where you need to be at the price. It's my job to dig until I find a fit that works for you. We put the guy in a perfect spot. He was under what he wanted to spend, what was near impossible. And I get a text on Super Bowl Sunday, like 3 years ago when I put him in there. He says, I can't believe I'm in this huge living room with my kids and my family around me. I can't thank you enough for putting me in this house and getting me to where I want to be. I sent it to our CEO. I said, this is why we do this business. This was a challenge. I said, listen, we're going to get it. I'm going to work. You put your faith in me. I am going to work my butt off to get you where. And he's within 20 minutes from the wife. It checked 9 out of 10 boxes for the guy. And he says, Dan even made me walk around the neighborhood and show me where the park was for my boys, where the Dairy Queen was. Like, he took the time. Others, not disparaging anybody, others aren't going to do it. I just tick differently. You
should have Greg as a guest.
And we should bring him on. I love him. And he loves his house. He still loves it. And he got it great. The lady even reassessed the taxes. So the taxes went down. We just put him in a great spot. But I appreciated him coming to me, and I felt like I provided the service to him over and above what I hope others would do. And that's the difference. I talked to someone today real quick, and I said, look, we don't pay for leads. I pay zero. No leads. The only people I'm in with right now is my social media, because that's part of our advertising and marketing campaign. We don't buy leads. All of our business is from sphere of influence and referral based. And when you buy leads, it cuts in. The guy called me this week, real quick. I'm gonna bring you in. Guy called me this week. He said, I want to give you 20% referral. I want to send you leads. I said, how about I go out and get my own leads, my own business, and that extra 20% stays in my left pocket, and I don't pay you 20%. And I grow them. I grow them, and I grow relationships. Like, I've gone on my 4th, my African people. I'm on my 4th deal with them this year. They have a large family, and they say, Mr. Dan, you go to Mr. Dan, nobody else. Mr. Dan, Mr. Bo to Forge, they're taking care of us. And Bo does our mortgages, and we do right by them, and they're loyal, man. They're loyal as can be, because they appreciate what we do for them and how we represented them, and we have their back, And they're newer to the country, so they don't feel comfortable all the time that people have their back. And they know when they work with us that we're going to look out for their best interests, every client we deal with. And that's the way we do our business. I don't want to buy business. I just think it's not old school the way we would talk. Go ahead, Hub.
Well, I think that both you and Bay had really good stories about how you want to guide people into something that's going to help them in the long term and in the big picture. And I mean, I did a lot of guitar recitals, and I would recommend to the student, okay, first off, you want to play the song that's not, you don't want to play a song that's too hard for you, because it's going to be, you're going to have to focus on your performing, developing your performing confidence. And you want a song that's easier than what is your hardest song. And you don't, and musicians have egos. They don't want to admit that, they want to think that they're as good as the guy who's on the radio or the guy who played it on the record. They think they're already there. They just didn't get the big break. Okay, but you want it needs to be easier, but it also can't be in your bubble. You got to speak to the audience. Okay, so when you're playing for parents and people who aren't musicians, you want to play a song that they're going to understand, and not just guitar players. And I've told this to Coco and Bay about this. You want to speak to them. So you want to make sure that the person who's performing is going to get a good result for them, and you don't want them. You want it to work out for them. Okay, and so you want to tell them. Now, I told Bay that, look, I'm actually, people, when I suggest something to somebody, people think I'm like they hurt my feelings if they don't do what I suggested or whatever. I said, actually, the opposite is true. If somebody actually does something that I suggested, I'm amazed that I convinced them to do it, because the amount of people who really listen to you is not very big. It's not.
Do you find it easy to put yourself out there? I think more people should give advice and see if somebody else can absorb it. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are afraid to put it out there because they're, just like we're saying, they're afraid of the response they're going to get.
Well, no, I think that, but the people coming back to you, they're afraid to tell you that they don't want to do they don't even want to try. They're not even open to trying something outside of their bubble or their box.
It's a great, even I gotta let you talk to my son, because the young people feel like that. They do. They feel like I'll be made fun of. I don't want to step out. I don't want to, but you grow as a person by doing things that make you maybe a little uncomfortable, almost like what Hub said. Do a lesser song, but play to your audience and step out in other areas and help grow your music and yourself, in different ways.
The biggest thing is to be successful and build confidence so that you're able to perform. So you might want to play something with 2 chords in it.
Right.
But the audience is not going to know the difference between that, and because they're not musicians, they're not going to know the difference between that and something with like Joe Satriani or something real complicated, because they're not going to relate to that, because that's guitar player music. This is what you want to do, is you want to play a bit part in somebody else's movie.
Right.
You see?
Right. All these character actors, how they got in long careers by just being a character actor,
Or maybe it parlayed into being a star, but you got to play a bit part first.
Well, this is what I think people don't, see. And when other agents let you give them advice and they absorb it, like Hub said, I feel like they appreciated it, and I'm helping them grow as an agent, like Dave and Al and Jimmy and all those guys did for me when I was a rookie agent. And I always tell people the people that helped me. I think people forget to tell people who helped them along the way. Al Madero passed away. All these guys, they said, if you're willing to absorb what I'm giving you, then we're going to help you. If you're ignorant and you blow me off, then I'm not going to bother. A lot of these guys' thought process was.
That you just said a whole bunch of stuff that was huge.
That's because we're running out of time.
What I'm saying is, you can suggest things, and people who are really open will listen to. Maybe they might try about 10%, 20%. I don't know the percentage. It's a small percentage that they're going to try if they really are open. And then a lot of people won't listen to any of it at all, nothing. But it's amazing when somebody actually even gets some success with 20% of it. I mean, there's so much improvement that we all need to make. And we really don't even know what our potential is, because there's just so much more that we need to learn. And I know you know that, because the people you talk about that you learn from, they sound like they're incredibly amazing people.
Yeah, we got some good people.
Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this, because you hit on so many great things with those notes. Was it like osmosis, like what I was thinking, all of a sudden kind of funneled to you and you took notes on it? Because you brought up so many points that I would like to touch on in this podcast this month. And me and you had zero conversation since last month. Other than
I have no idea. I had a sense at the beginning, and they say when you start with a talk show, the first, like say Rush Limbaugh or any of them guys, they would have the producer would make sure that the first call was going to set the tone of the whole thing. Now you can start over if you don't do so well at the first call, but you want to try and get the ball thrown out there so that there's a conversation about something that you all can relate to. And I'm going to watch this back because I'm pretty sure we came up with a good topic to talk about at the beginning.
Oh, it's fabulous. Honestly, this is what I wanted the podcast to be, right? We bring in the fact that we're talking about real estate and I sponsor the program at my office, but this conversation is more than that. And that's how the real estate business, it was so much more, and it all ties in to what we're trying to come across. And that's why we do this monthly podcast with the Humans Over Houses. And none of this is scripted, folks. Like I said, I've been so busy. Half the time I don't even have a heart to get back to Hub when he sends me stuff. But for us to bring this together, it's crazy. I don't. Maybe it's Coco in the background there, Bay, pushing the
Now, this is a different subject, but do you? I don't know. I at first I was thinking I don't even know if he wants me to send him this stuff.
Oh no, all the time. Yeah, I just been so busy. I watch him at night, late at night when I'm in bed. I watch him and go through some of the stuff. But we've been this deal in the city that kind of went bad. I've been working day and night. I actually crossed over the aisle to help the other side try to get it corrected, but it's taken up a lot of time. But I want to circle back on a lot of this stuff, and we'll get together. We're going to have to see about some other things too. I know we're running late here, but it's exactly what I want. I mean, and I need more time to sit down. We've been running like crazy. Actually, I'm going to run out and pick up paperwork for the deal I just booked today to make sure I get it to my processor tomorrow. So we're on our timeline. But we're going to wrap this one up. Go ahead, Bay.
You should bring up real quick though. You had your first office listing of the year. And you had your open house the other day, and within 5 days, under agreement.
5 days gone. Yeah, that was my first listing of the year. Yeah, and it was a relocation, and she had to go quick. She settled on March 9th. That's how quick it's going to go. So we're moving the paperwork through. But we had an open house. We had 25 families through the open house. It was like a circus. The street was packed. The police almost came to jockey the traffic. I mean, we had so much traffic at this. I had Diana Simmons, who's a longtime friend of mine, and she works for me. She came and helped me host it. And one of the homeowners was there, but we needed that amount of people, because we had so many people through the open house. There's no houses available. House was up at $375,000, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, in-ground pool, beautiful backyard setup, but reasonable price. Market's kind of really rising in prices, but I couldn't believe the amount of traffic. And that, we had Super Bowl hangover, and that turned into real nice agent. Kate called me up. She said, Dan, I got a reload buyer coming out of Maryland, very interested in the property. Me and her put the deal together. Great to work with. You talk about like some people aren't as excellent, really good. Put the deal together today. We signed it and we're moving. Everybody's ecstatic. Hopefully we can put the rest of the details together. But yeah, we're doing by the people. We're trying to do what's best for the people, and we're getting our fair share. I have, even with the one in the city that are kind of hanging on by a thread, I have 7 deals right now myself. I'm a small player. We're a small office, and I'm not working for Wycott anymore. We're a small player, and we're just so proud that people Lisa's got 2 deals and just finished 2 deals this year, so we average like 50 deals a year and we're growing it, but it's been we're slowly building, and this is what we talked about today. It's not perfect, but the word's getting out. They're saying, hey, these people really care. They're spending the time with us. They're giving us every bit of detail. We talked about that, how we're giving them advice even on spending, just a thought process. And we think that's a fiduciary right that we owe to the people. There's 39,000 agents in Philadelphia. We owe it to them to give them our best effort. You can hire anybody. When they hire me, I'm grateful. Puts food on my table, and I want to do the best job for them. And that's why we only have 7 people. We don't have 100, because we want that close-knit, same mindset. With Bill Hansel and my friend Joanne and Lisa and Evelyn and Ann and Diana, we really care about doing it the right way and representing our people the right way. So, it's growing. It's we're gonna take our negative feedback and grow with our social media. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for Hub for joining in. you always have to thank people that help you along the way, and you take a look and you say, Hub don't have to come on this program, and look at the insight he gave us tonight. I mean, I think it was personally fabulous. And like I said, none of it was scripted. And I thought we had a great program. An hour and 5-minute program went by like that. I told Danny, I said, we'll be off short tonight because we don't have our musical guest, but we turned it into just a fabulous program. I want to thank you and everybody to coming on. We're going to do it next month. We have our conference at Bay. We're going to get some content from conference. So our next Hub, I'm in your state, the 8th to the 10th. I'll be in Houston for the NextHome conference. We'll probably do it when I get back. We'll have a lot of information. We'll have we have international speakers coming, a bunch of news from the Realtors Association and National Association of Realtors. So it's always good to learn, right? So you're with a bunch of people, we network, we learn, we bring back ideas. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of energy down there in Texas. So we'll be at the Marquee in Houston, 8th to the 10th. Say a prayer we get there safely and back, and we'll bring you the podcast next month.
Love it.
Hub, Bay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go off the air here.
Have a good trip.
Thank you. I'll be in touch. All right, guys.
And we got to hook up to get that YouTube thing situated too.
You know what? I thought about this. It's been like a week since you told me. Let's get that timing set up, and we'll hook that up.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Thank you. See you next month. Take care, everybody.
See you next month, everybody.